and we are on Parshas Yitro, one of the more important Parshas of the Torah. Parshas Yitro, together next week's Parshas Mishpatim, discusses the events leading up to the giving of the Torah at Sinai, and specifically in this week's Parsha, it discusses the 10 Commandments that were given. And next week's Parsha, there's a few other issues, and we're going to, and we know, again, every Parsha of the week, its significance remains with us on a continual current basis. So if the Jewish people accepted the Torah at Sinai 3,300 years ago plus change, and it's related to in this week's Parsha, that means there's something about this week that should help us from this Torah portion in order for us to accept the Torah again for ourselves as well. There has to be some kind of acceptance of the Torah. Whatever issues the Jews had to deal with then are the issues we have to deal with now. So that's what we're going to discuss, and my words are primarily from Rav Shimshon Pincus of blessed memory, from his Sefer Tiferes Shimshon. He has 2 essays on Parshas Yisro, and I'm going to be working from these 2 essays in reverse order the way he presents it. And I think it's a very, very good points he brings over here. Now, there's a very famous question that the first 2 sources bring for us. Next week's Parsha, we get a lot more details of the preliminary happenings in the 6 days of the month of Sivan before we got the Torah. And one of the events was that Moshe was told to write out the events of history that make up the beginning of the Torah until Parshas Yisro, and that was called the Sefer HaBris, the Book of the Covenant. And Moshe took this Book of the Covenant, he read it to all the people. And it says, he took the Book of the Covenant and read it in earshot of the people, and they said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Everything that Hashem has said, we will do and we will obey. Na'aseh v'nishma, the magical words. We'll do and we'll obey. We understand that to mean we will do. They don't even know what he told them to do yet. He says we have such trust in God, whatever he'll tell us, we'll do it. Naaseh, we will do it. Finish it. Then he'll tell us what to do and we'll do it. But no question, we want it. We want the Torah. If Hashem is offering it, we want it. So pretty clear as a total voluntary acceptance of the Torah. Naaseh v'nishma. We'll do it even before we're here. The problem is, the Gemara in Shabbos deduces from a verse in this week's Parsha, when the Torah says that Jewish people, on the 6th day of Sivan, they camped at the foothills of the mountain. So rabbis understand it to mean the following. Source number 2. Then Hashem took our Sinai and suspended it over the people, indicating to them, if you accept the Torah, good, but if not, you will be buried under this mountain. As it were, Hashem forced the Jews into receiving the Torah. The Midrash understands by the way the words are written in the Pasuk, that it's not that, it really says that they camped, bitachti sahar. It really literally means underneath the mountain. They camped underneath the mountain. How can you camp underneath the mountain? So Rabbi said, because God picked up the mountain and said, you better take the Torah. If you don't take it, I'm going to destroy you. It seems God wouldn't have to do that unless there was some reluctance to receive. And that's the famous contradiction that the rabbis raise. The first source indicates that they willingly accepted the Torah, and the second one says that God had to force them into it. So what gives? So we're going to present to you this morning 3 answers. One from the commentary of the Tosfos that's right on the Gemara, one from the Medrash Tanchuma, and one from Rav Pincus. So the third source, the Tosfos, says the following. He says, yes, even though the Jews willingly accepted the Torah, that was a couple days before, but when push came to shove, and they saw the great fire and the smoke come from the mountains, they started to get scared. So Hashem pushed them into it. So initially they wanted it, and then they got scared. So we can give an analogy. Let's say, for example, a person has a very bad toothache. It's really hurting him. So he goes to the dentist, and the dentist should take care of him. and he's willing to pay. And the guy says, well, it's going to cost you $1,000 for me to take care of the work. And he says, no problem, here, I'll give you the pay in advance, just get rid of the pain. And the dentist puts him in the chair, and he's starting to work already. And then, let's say, for example, we don't have any Novocaine in these days, and the guy's trying to pull the bad tooth out. And all of a sudden, the guy's going through excruciating pain. So what does he do? The guy says, you're an idiot, I'm getting out of here. He runs right out of the chair. So what does the dentist do? He's used to this. He's got two strong men at the door. As soon as the guy wants to run at the door, these two huge men take him and put him right back into the seat, and they hold him down and let the dentist finish the work. Right? So now, what's going on over here? Did anybody force the guy to go to the dentist to begin with? No, he willingly went to the dentist. I got a pain, I got to fix up my pain. And he's really willing to pay money beforehand. So what happened that he got to run out? The answer is there was a certain moment of very great pain, and the pain was too great for him to bear. And as much as he knows how good it is that he should get his tooth fixed, as he knows there's going to be an infection and this and that, he could even die from certain tooth infections. And although he wanted to get rid of the pain, but the pain of pulling out the tooth was 10 times greater than the pain of the toothache. So he really was just afraid. So now we got to, for his own good, we got to sit him down and hold him down. And the truth is, he really wanted it. He really wanted it. But, he's afraid of the pain. Pain was too much. So for your own good, we're going to give you what you initially wanted. Okay? Same thing, when the Jewish people got to Mount Sinai, they understood the best thing we could do is to accept God's Torah. He's so wonderful, he loves us, he does this, he does that. Of course we should accept the Torah. But when push came to shove, and they come to the mountain, and now it's really the time, and they're beginning to understand the awesome reality of this. So then, just like in the dentist chair, they chickened out. And God says, yeah, but I know you really want it. Since you really want it, I'm going to put the mountain over your head. I'm going to put the shotgun to you, and that's going to force you to take it, and it's ultimately what you want. And that's really what Tosfos is saying. All very nice interpretation. However, there's one important thing that is missing. The analogy with the dentist, it's very clear why the guy was running out of the chair, because there was a tremendous pain. The question is, what was the fear that the Jews had when they came to the mountain? It couldn't just be the fire and the smoke, because they already were used to that. They saw 10 plagues. There was a lot of screaming and theatrics. God did a lot of amazing things. He split the sea. It was not a simple issue either. Okay, so the mountain smoking. Thunder, lightning, okay, loud. Yeah, but I've been to a few Spielberg shows that Hashem put on already. So what's missing in this interpretation, although it's correct in terms of the Jews wanted it, there's some fear that they had, and God said, I'm not going to allow that fear to stop you. So now I'm going to force you what's really good for you, what you really want. But what the problem is what was the fear? And we can't just say it was the thunder and lightning. Okay, so to this he brings a beautiful medrash. It's quite long, a story. It's quite long, but it brings up very important points. So we'll bring in the way he quotes the medrash. Times the Gemara, there's a rabbi by the name of Rav Kahana. Okay, and he had a son whose name was Salik. And Salik was 5 years old. And at the time that he was 5 years old, the father wants to take his son and say, it's time for you to start to go to Cheder. Start for you to go to school. And the father wants to take the son out of the house and take him where he's going to learn. So the mother, the wife, the mother, was very concerned about this. And she was, we could call an overprotective mother. And says, there's no way you're going to take this boy out of the house. Better me and you should die. Over my dead body, this kid's going out of the house. Could be he was maybe the only kid, and maybe it was hard for her to conceive this child, and she had all kinds of fears, and she's overprotective. Says this child is not leaving the house. And Rav Kahana was not happy with this. He said, if that's the way you're going to be, then I think maybe we should get divorced, because you want what's not good for our child. And he brings a pasuk that says, you know, the greatest negative thing a person can be if they prevent water from a person who needs water to live. And we know that Torah is like water. If you don't allow him to learn Torah, it's like you're not going to give him any water. So what kind of wife are you? So the wife says, okay, let's make a compromise. Torah he should learn, but out of the house he shouldn't go. So what are you going to do? Well, go out, find a smart man, and hire him to be the private tutor. Bring him to the house. He'll teach him Torah in the house. I just don't want to leave him in the house. I'm afraid. So fine. So Rav Kahana finds a very smart rabbi, and he tells him, listen, I would like to make a contract with you. I want you to teach my son Torah for the next 25 years. A 25-year contract. And I will pay you a very large fee. I will pay it well worth your while to make sure you teach him Torah properly. So the guy accepted it. They made the deal. And this person, the rabbi, was Rabbi Eliezer. Fine. So Rabbi Eliezer now is teaching Salik Torah for the next 25 years. Can you imagine having a great rabbi, a private tutor for 25 years? Like not even any recess or anything, you know, like this is like a long time to learn a lot of Torah. Okay, 25 years come and go. Salik is 30 years old. He is now a great, great Torah scholar. And he's a grown-up, he's an adult. And he never really ever left his house for 30 years. So Rav Kahana pays Rabbi Eliezer, and now, and he dresses Salik in fancy rabbinical garb, because after all, he is now a scholar. He's 30 years old. He's been studying for 25 years. He's an amazing scholar. He says, okay, if you're nice clothes with you, now you can go out to the mall, see what's going on. You can meet people, talk to people. You're ready. You're a big man. Okay, so Salik goes, but one thing they didn't give him was any money. So he's going out in the marketplace, around there for a little while, and he's getting thirsty. So he really would want to drink. So he goes to one of the people in the marketplace. He says, could you give me a little bit of water, please? I'm thirsty. Now remember, he hasn't been out, you know, usually little kids by the time they're 2 weeks old are in a mall already, right? Kids know everything about malls. This guy's never been in a market for 30 years, right? He has no idea of buying and selling and this and all that stuff, right? He just knows whatever he needed, he asked his mother gave him, finished. So he figures that's the way it is in the big world. So he goes to one of the guys in the stall and says, can you give me a nice drink of cold water? I'm really hot. The guy says, it'll cost you $1. He says, I haven't got any money. So I got any money I'm not going to give you. He says, but don't you realize I'm a great Torah scholar? And for the fact that I'm a great Torah scholar, I spent my whole life learning Torah, you know, just give me a little bit of water. So the guy says, nothing doing. Just because you learn Torah doesn't mean we have to give you anything. After all, and he starts quoting chapter and verse in Pirkei Avos. If you learned a lot of Torah, you shouldn't be arrogant from it, because that's what you were created for. So, I created you to learn, he created me to work, and I only work by making my money. So sorry, I ain't giving you anything. So this was, for us, you figure that's not a big deal. It's common sense. But for Salik, who was removed from civilization for 30 years, he figures what's simple kindness. And he was taught how important Torah study was, and he is a scholar. So for a scholar, it should be the guy should figure it's my honor to give you a little drink of water, right? They didn't. Now we come to an interesting turn in the Medrash. The Medrash says that Salik immediately got angry, and he rushes home, very sad, and he takes those fancy, beautiful, rabbinical, sophisticated garb that he has. He rips them off. He throws them from his father. And in a rage he says, someone who learns Torah and Talmud and Gemara and this, he isn't even worth $1 worth of water. And therefore, I want to go into a different domain of life. I don't want to dedicate my life to Torah. I see the people in the marketplace have things a lot better off. You can get a glass of water, you make money and this and that. I'm in the wrong profession. Okay. So the father is a good father and a clever educator. So if Kahana says, okay, you want to go into another realm of life? Fine. So we'll start you off here. So so the father says, let me go into, I have a special place. I've hidden a very special diamond that me and your mother have saved up over the years. We scrimped and saved. I brought a beautiful, beautiful diamond. Really was for our retirement. But you say you want to go into another realm, so not a problem. He brings out this precious diamond. He says, this is an unbelievable diamond. I want you to go to the marketplace and sell the diamond. You'll make a lot of money from it. Half of the money will go to me and Ima for our retirement, and half of the money will go to you, and then you'll start your life new. But now listen very carefully to the instructions I give you, because you've never sold anything before, so you need a little bit of instructions. So there's all kinds of places where you can go. So first, I want you to go, now this is a really valuable diamond, so I want you to go to first to the flea market. Go to a flea market where they sell knickknacks, junk jewelry, and things like that. And just ask them what price they will give you for this diamond. Now I'm telling you now, they're not going to offer you a lot of money, but hear what they offer all around. But don't you dare sell it. Okay. Then I want you to go to another part. I want you to go to the diamond district. And over there, I know there's 10 diamond shops over there. I want you to go to each one and hear what they're going to offer you. I'm telling you, the first shop will offer you much more than whatever the flea market offered you. We go to one, go to the next, tell the second guy what the first guy was offering, then go to the third guy and fourth, and then probably when you come to the last guy, he's going to offer you what is worth probably 25,000 gold pieces, and that's what you're going to sell to, and that's what you should do. So the son does exactly as he's told. Exactly what he's told. And he does the whole thing, and he comes back with 25,000 gold pieces. He did exactly the job that was to be done. So now the father says, listen, you should know, my son, I'm very happy with you, but I didn't send you out just to sell a diamond, but rather I wanted to help you become a little smarter and a little more knowledgeable. And this is what did you learn from this experience? What did you learn from this? You know, not just that you made $25,000. You have to learn something of this. So he says like this, I want you to know that, you know, you were upset with the guy with the water. You were upset with the guy at the water. He wouldn't give you any water for free. So let me ask you like this. When you went to the guys in the flea market, how much did they offer you? This one for me, $5, $10, $15, $20. He says, why? Why didn't they offer you 25,000 gold pieces? He says, well, I guess they just don't deal with those precious commodities. And to them, you know, a shiny glass is a shiny glass. A shiny glass, you know, cubic zirconium, a shiny glass, this, so they looked at it as another shiny glass. As another shiny glass, they would only offer me based on what their perspective of selling jewelry is all about. When I went, so how come the other guys? Well, the other guys are used to dealing with diamonds. Used to dealing with diamonds, they appreciate the value of a diamond. So therefore they gave me money based on their appreciation of what they had. So father said, okay, so let's think about that for a minute. So why do you think the guy didn't give you any water? He says, well, I guess he isn't a big scholar. He says, that's right. You went to a place where they only know that money is important. Torah isn't important. So just like the flea market wasn't going to offer you a lot of money for a diamond that was genuinely a diamond, even though you are a great spiritual diamond, these people don't know how to deal with this stuff. Now I'm going to send you over to the local yeshiva. And you're going to go there and you're going to ask them, you're going to just go there and start learning and let them find out who you are. I'm not going to go through all the details of the story, but he sends the son to the yeshiva, and right away he deals with the people there. They see what kind of scholar he is, and in a very short while they appointed him to be the dean of the yeshiva. So is the end of the story, because they recognized who he was. So the story is a wonderful story, number one, in terms of, you know, you have to know what circles you'll be appreciated or not. But Rav Pinkus asked the following question on the story. His question is, this is very unusual. We're talking about a young man who for 25 years was studying Torah. He never left his house for 25 years. And now he goes out to the marketplace, and so suddenly he should want to give up what his whole life was working on for 25 years? I mean, what is he, a fickle teenager? You know, so the guy didn't give him any water. You just throw it away for nothing. What's the point? You know, a lot of people like they see the nice lesson that the father was teaching him, but there might be a more important lesson that we may have missed in the story. Why would Salik give up everything he's been working for when he goes to the market and the guy won't give him any water? So Pinkus says, from here we learn a very fundamental principle. He says, what is the most precious thing to a human being? The most precious thing to a human being is his own life and his own sense of self, of who he is. It's the most important thing to a person. And there's nothing more important than that. The person really feels good about himself. To the point that he says, for example, when the Torah says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," you should love your neighbor like yourself. Ramban asks the question, how is it possible to love your neighbor like yourself? How can it be like yourself? The yourself is so precious. And we know many great tzaddikim, even tzaddikim who do a lot of chesed. But have you ever seen a person does chesed to the point where you're able to give the other guy to have exactly as good as you have it? It doesn't really happen. Because you know why? Because you always love yourself more than everybody else. You're going to help somebody who doesn't have any food, you give him. But you eat steak dinners every night. You're going to give him steak dinners every night? No. Because, you know, at the end of the day, my sense of self is the most important thing for myself. So this I, the I of the person, is extremely important. So now, says Rav Pinkus, a very important idea in human emotion and psychology. A person says, listen, I am what I am, but I'm not necessarily what I should be. In other words, people are very comfortable being the I that they're comfortable with. I am who I am, and I like who I am. People like who I am. I have a good sense of who I am. But I don't necessarily have to be what I should be. Meaning to say that the way a person gets used to living his life, that's how he sees himself. And to change that which he is now, any serious change in one's lifestyle would now be destroying the I that I know that I am. In other words, I am what I am. I am what I've been for the last 25, 35, 45, 50 years. This is who I am. And you know what? I like myself. I like who I am. The I'm good friends with the I give myself the best of this, the best of that. I think I do pretty good things in my life. And now if you're telling me to change my life, what you're telling me is to change the I. And what the greatest fear of a human being is that I will no longer be me. And this is the greatest threat of what change is all about. The greatest hindrance to change, not just it's something new, the fear of the unknown, but the greatest problem of change is the fear of losing yourself. I will no longer be who I am. And I like myself. Because you're used to being with yourselves. You used to liking the kind of person that you are. You know, if it for better or for worse, and even if it's for worse, you still like who you are. And you say, this is who I am, and I'm comfortable, the I that I am. And you want me to be different, then I won't be the I anymore, and that's something I'm not very comfortable being. Don't take my life away from me. And that's the great threat that a person feels. And he brings this idea in terms of the context of the Baal Tshuva. A secular Jew who is used to leading a secular life, and he, of course, and that's a good life. I'm happy with my life, things are fine. And Rabbi, you're telling me to be something else. That means you're telling me that I can't be me anymore. And if you tell me I can't be me anymore, well, that's the most precious thing that I have is being me. And I'm going to lose myself in what you want me to be. Even if maybe you're going to tell me it's better. But you know what? I'm too afraid to not be me anymore. I will lose myself. Right? So everything that was until now, that's called life. The way I've been living. This is how I live my life. whatever. I get up in the morning, I go to work, I have different forms of recreation in my life. I do this, I do that, I do all these things. And now you're telling me that if I'm going to be an observant Jew, I have to buy tefillin, and I have to go to davening, and I have to go to a minyan, and I can't go to, I can't watch television, and I can't do this, and I can't go to the bars, and I got to learn more Torah. It says, and even if that might be good, but that's not what I am. That's not who I am, and I like who I am. And the greatest fear a human being has is losing who he is. And really, when you're asking a person to change, what you really ask him to do to a certain extent is to kill himself. Because I can't be the me that I am, right? And more than that, let's even say if someone is religious, but you want the person to be more religious. The person also has a tremendous fear for that as well, and the person will feel that that's not a life. And so it was with the story with this young Salik. Salik, who was a Ben Torah, he was learning Torah. He was great in Torah, but what happens? He goes to the marketplace, and suddenly there's a whole new world out there, and in that whole new world, he has no place. He has no life in that new world. I live a world of Torah, and in a world of Torah, you can't make a living. And all of a sudden, he felt that his life was no longer a life. I can't live this way anymore. And therefore, he got quite upset with the father. And this is the issue that the Jewish people were going through. The Jewish people, what they were afraid, they understood that God says, you got to be different. I have a very special mission for you. You're going to be the chosen people. You're going to be a kingdom of priests. You're going to be a holy people. It all sounded good and wonderful. And that's amazing. It really sounds nice. And intellectually, they could understand that idea. But now it came time to go and do it. And now they're realizing, you know what this means? It means forget about all the fun things we did in Egypt. Forget about all the silly things in life, because now we're going to really have to change. And to change means we aren't the people that we once were. And the Jewish people, the greatest fear is to lose yourself in something bigger and better of what you could be. Right? It's not just the fear of the unknown, but it is the destruction of the known. Every change requires two things. It requires you to be something else, and that might not be that difficult, or it might be a little bit mysterious and maybe scary, but the worst part is I got to now destroy what I am. I can't live the way I have been living. And you know what? I thought that living was the way I was living. That was life. You're telling me not to live anymore. I can't be who I am. And living any other life I don't know of, so you're taking my life away from me. Right? That's what Salik was worried about. He said, I don't have a life. I don't have a life. I'm in this new world. I'm going to have to be different. I'm going to have to, the old world hasn't worked for me. And that's why he's so upset. He's so upset. What do you mean I'm going to have to change now? The change, the apparent need to change got him so upset. He was so angry. But the Pharaoh says, well, no, you're in a world where they don't appreciate who you are. They don't appreciate who you are. But the point that Rav Pinkus is trying to bring out of this story and this whole thing, yes, you go to the dentist, and the dentist is going to pull your tooth out, but there's a fear. So now what was the fear that the Jews had when they were going to the mountain? The fear is they would lose their identity. They would lose their life. And that fear they couldn't get over by themselves. That's what Tosfos is saying. This is only half the answer, though. Because the real question now we have to go is, so what did they feel they were going to lose from the old life to the new life? Now we got to take it one step further. What do they feel they're going to lose from the old life? How would this new life be so different than the old life that they're afraid they're going to lose their lives? So now we're going to look at the first piece where Pinkus talks about, and now it's going to get very interesting here. But are you with me so far? So again, as we're looking at this Parsha, God is encouraging us all this week to make changes. And all of us are reluctant to make certain changes in our lives. Right? So now we're getting to the point of, even though we know it's better for us, but now the point of the fear is, I'm going to lose who I am. I'm going to lose my life. I really feel like you're going to kill me. So let's take it a step further now. And we're going to find something very, very interesting. Let us take a look at source number 5. When people get married, there are 7 special blessings that we make, the Sheva Brachas. And one of the Sheva Brachas is, blessed are you, God, Baruch Atah Hashem, Mikadesh Amo Yisrael Al Yedei Chuppah V'Kiddushin. It's really the bracha under the chuppah. It's not the Sheva Brachas, rather. It's the bracha. I shouldn't have written Sheva Brachas. It should be the bracha under the chuppah. There are 2 blessings we make when a husband and wife get married. Right? And the blessing is that Hashem sanctified His Jewish people through chuppah and kiddushin. So the simple explanation is, He made us a holy people through the institution of marriage. He sanctified the people. In other words, you could live not getting married. So by getting married, you could be a holy people. Mekadesh Abo Yisrael, He sanctified His people through this process that's called chuppah and kiddushin, marriage. And if you're married, you can be a holy person. That's the simple meaning, which is certainly true. But the commentary of the Shita Mekubetzes in Maseches Ksuvah says a little bit more, deeper. He says, not only that's true, but the fact of the matter is that Hashem Himself at Sinai brought the Jewish people to a chuppah with Him, and He sanctified us through a marriage process between us and Hashem. And that was really the forging of the entire people. The people, as we know, the Jewish people, became a Jewish people when we got married to Hashem. And therefore, every time a Jewish person gets married, we invoke the first marriage. The first Jewish marriage was the Jewish people to God. So what is the significance of this? And we're going to see a beautiful idea over here. I'm going to say the idea first, and then I'll elaborate on it. We know that in marriage, in Jewish marriage, there are 2 and really 3 steps to the full process of marriage. 3 steps, but we're going to focus mainly on 2. In Hebrew, they're called kiddushin and nisuin. 2 steps. Kiddushin literally is we'll call it, that's what we would call the engagement, for lack of a better English word. But kiddushin really means the sanctification, where there is we'll call a legal transaction that is happening here. A legal reality is happening over here. And in the olden days, this was how marriage was done, not today. In the olden days, a man would give a ring to a woman, okay? And he'd say, you are harei at mikudeshes li betabazu. You are now mikudeshes. You are what's the word I'm looking for? Designated for me. In other words, you're separated from anybody else, and you're designated for me as my wife. And now, what would happen then? So he gives her the ring, right? And now this woman is this man's wife. And she now has a halachic status called an eshes ish, a married woman. But, after step 1, does she now go and live with this man? According to Jewish law? No. According to Jewish law, what happened for many, many years, she went back to her father's house. And what happened? She now would have a year to prepare for the marriage. A year later, they would make a chuppah, and then they would say the other blessings, and then they would go home and live as husband and wife. Okay, that is how it happened for years and years and years, and that is the real way it is done. Nowadays, everything in society is different. We do all the processes in one shot. You know, we make the marriage blessings, and we have the chuppah, and then we make the Sheva Brachas. And in order not to combine it everything in one shot, we read the ksubah in the middle to make a break. But there's two distinct steps that's happening. The guy gives the ring. She is his wife, but they are not living together. Then after the brachas that are made under the chuppah, and the chuppah is conceptually the man's house. Conceptually, the chuppah, it's got a roof on top and 4 doors. It's his house. So really, in the olden days, you didn't need a chuppah. First, you just gave her the ring. He gave her the ring, and that was the kiddushin. And then 12 months later, he took her home. Went into his chuppah, as it were. So now we all do it in one shot. But you should realize there's a step-by-step procedure going on. First, there's the kiddushin. She now is his wife, but they're not living together. Then, after we make the shever brachas under the chuppah, now they're considered living together, and then they go to the yichud room and they spend some time alone. Okay. Now, so what do we see? What happens extra in step 2? When the nisuin happens. The nisuin means there's a concept of a relationship going on over here. The woman has left her father's house. She now is living with the husband in the husband's house. That's the second step. So what is the difference between the first 2 steps over here, Kiddush and Nisuim? It is really expressed in halacha as well. For example, after a woman is betrothed, when he gives the ring to the woman, she now has all the laws of a married woman. When he just gives her the ring, and that's it. At this point, she is called an Ashes Ish. She's called a married woman. And if she would, God forbid, do anything with another man, she'd be punished to the full letter of the law, up to the point of capital punishment, even though she never once was with her husband. But the fact he gives her the ring, they are now legally married, and she has laws that apply to her. Right? On the other hand, the man yet has no obligations. At this point, got no obligations. She's living in her father's house. I don't have to support her, to take care of her. Not at all. She gets sick, it's not her problem. She's got responsibilities to me. I don't have any responsibilities to her yet. Now, when Kiddushin takes place, when the Kiddush takes place, in other words, the woman is betrothed to the man, but still not living as his wife, as a husband and wife. Nisuin, the second step, the actual marriage, the woman goes into his domain, and they live together in a partnership of marriage. Okay, you hear clearly the 2 steps over here? So, what the rabbis tell us over here is that at the giving of the Torah of Sinai is the very first marriage. And if it's the very first marriage, you have to have the same 2 steps that a man and a woman have privately with their own marriage. It's the very same 2 steps that Hashem made with the Jewish people. So now the question is, where did we find the Kiddushin step 1? And where do we find the Nisuim in step 2? Which precise moment was we'll call the engagement, the Kiddushin, and where was the precise moment of the Nisuim, the actual marriage of husband and wife? So when was the Kiddushin? When the Jewish people said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will obey. In other words, the Jewish people said, we will accept the Torah with all the responsibilities that the Torah has for us. And just like the woman, once she takes the ring, she now has responsibilities. She can't be with another man anymore. Right? She has to get herself ready for the marriage. There's obligations have evolved upon her. What did she do? The guy says, you want to marry me? Yes. Here's my finger. Go put the ring on my finger. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to be married to you. At that point, the obligations begin. And therefore, when the Jewish people said, Na'aseh v'nishma, at that point, the Jews obliged themselves to all 630 mitzvahs. The only thing that was missing is they didn't know what they were. They knew a few. In Mara, last week, they were commanded on a few of them. They were told about Shabbos, a few other mitzvahs. But the Jews, at that point, that was already a couple days before God actually gave the Torah at Sinai. They said, we agree to, there was the Sefer Bris was written, we agree, we are going to do everything God tells us to do. But what was missing? What was missing? The Nisuim. They weren't yet prepared to live together with God. they were willing to be engaged. The Nisuin, we said, step 2 means you have to leave your father's house. Now go into the strange man's house. Right? So what would we call, for the Jewish people, what would be their father's house? It would be the world that they were used to living in. The life that they were used to. So just like, the girl, her name is, Miss Schwartz. She's family of Schwartz. She's used to what Father Schwartz and Mother Schwartz were doing, and Grandfather Schwartz and Grandmother Schwartz. Right? Used to living a certain way, right? Now, what do you got to do when you get married? First of all, you're going to change your name. It's going to go from Schwartz to, Spiegel. I don't know, right? Got to change your name. And guess what? You're not living with your parents anymore. You're living with another guy. And that means there's going to be a lot of change. Right? And therefore, the Jewish people, they were in their father's house. In other words, what they were used to, people of the world will say they were part of, we'll just say simply, whose house they were in? The non-Jewish world. They're members of human race, non-Jews. And that's the world they were in, the family they were used to. You eat and you drink and you do what you want. And now we're being told that you now are going to go into a new house. You're going into God's house, which means there's a whole different lifestyle that's happening. And this is one of the great, scary issues of any Jewish marriage. That the scary issue for the Jewish marriage, more so, but not entirely, is more scary for the woman to get married than the man, because the woman really is leaving the way things were in her house and now has to adopt the customs of the man's house. What's the halacha if a Sephardi woman marries an Ashkenazi man? Although Sephardi women are very reluctant to accept this halacha. She must accept all the Ashkenazi traditions that the man has. Right? She's used to eating rice on Pesach, and she can't eat rice on Pesach anymore because her husband doesn't. Right? And vice versa. Vice versa. If the woman is an Ashkenaz, she marries a Sephardi guy, she has to now eat rice on Pesach. So the woman has to go through a much greater change than the man. That's parenthetically why the first year the husband has an obligation to make the wife happy. It's not stam. Why doesn't the wife have an obligation to make the man happy? The answer is he doesn't need to be any happier. He's got everything the way it is plus a wife. The wife has lost her whole life. You understand? So now the husband has to compensate for it. He's got to make sure she's happy. She's the one who's changing a lot. The husband is the guy's in his same neighborhood. I'm going with the traditional sense, right? In Jewish law, right, there was a family patriarchal piece of land. They always lived on that. Your Shevet Yisachar. This was the area everybody in Yisachar lived in, and you live in that area, and you're living with this family, and she just the son's family business, as it were. He's with his parents. He's there. The woman has to make all the changes over here. So back to our story over here, right? The woman now has to take on. So the Jewish people, they're the bride. God is the groom. So we now have to change our names. What were we called until now? We were called Hebrews, Ivrim, right? Hebrews, which is the non-Jewish way the non-Jews related to us. Yeah, there's the ones who always do things the opposite of us. They're on one side and we're on the other. They're Ivrim. But now God says, now you're going to change your last name. You're not going to be, Avram HaIvri. If your name was Avram, your name is going to be Avram HaYehudi. You now are a Yehudi. Yehudi, which really has what letters? The 4 letters of God's name. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, plus a Daled, which the mystical people say the letter Daled is a reference to a female nature, which I'm not going to get into now. It's not so politically correct. I don't want to upset too many people. But in other words, they're taking on God's last name. God's last name is Yud Kei Vav Kei. We added Daled, so now we are gods. We're the gods. We used to be the Hebrews, now we're the gods. We changed our last name, right? And he happens to be the creator of the universe. So now their world has changed, and the biggest proof to that is we say it every Yontif. And Yontif, the repetition of Shemon Esrei, it says the Yontif Siddur. At the end it says what? V'shimcha hagodol v'hakadosh oleinu karasa. Source 8. And you called us by your great and holy name. You separate us from the non-Jews, and you called us by your great and holy name. We are now Yehudim. We are not Ivrim. We are not living in our Father's house. We're not Jews amongst Goyim, and we look at ourselves as Jews the way Goyim look at us as Jews. How did the Goyim look at the Jews? You're different than us. Right? Ivri means also the other side. Avram Ivri, he was on the other side. He'd be on the other side of the rest of the world. But that's how they understood themselves as non-Jews understood them. And that's how they lived their lives for the last few hundred years. But now God says, your life is changing. You're now no longer Ivrim. You're no longer a single girl. You're a married woman. You're coming into my house. You're coming into God's house. You're getting my last name. You're going to be a Yehudi. And that means your life is changing. Okay? So now, what happened was, now you begin to understand what's going on over here. So very good. When Hashem said, would you like the Torah? Would you like all the mitzvahs of the Torah? So definitely Jewish people were very happy to take on all the mitzvahs of the Torah. And they said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We are happy to do all those things. I'm happy to take the ring and be your wife. But God wanted more than just to have a woman who was his wife. He wanted a wife who would change her life for him and move into his house. And have a live life together with a new partner. To the total exclusion of the way the rest of the world looks at things. So what he is saying over here is that God says, it's not just I want you to do things, to put tefillin on, to make challah, to put tzitzis on, and to be obliged to a lot of things. I want you to live a life together with me. And it's not just enough to learn about kashrus and to keep kashrus at that. But together I want you, and here's the problem. And this is where the Jews were afraid. He says, yeah, but then we won't be normal. Normal people don't live with God. Normal people live with normal people. And yeah, once in a while, when you're in trouble, you pay homage to the God. Normal people are constituents in God's realm, but they don't live in his house. You know, we know that there's a God. How does the non-Jewish world look at God? Yeah, God has certain obligations for you. Okay, but stay far away from us. Stay far away. If we need something, we'll ask you. Send it, express courier. You stay up in the heavens and leave us alone. We like the normal life we have here. And the Jews are willing to say, you know what, we're willing to be better constituents. Willing to take more responsibility than the rest of the world. Willing to do more. But they still were very afraid. And that's normal. So it's still within the realm of normal. Non-Jews do 7 things for you at a distance from you. We'll do 613 at a distance from you. Because normal people do normal things and they don't talk about God so much. And they don't have the feeling that they're in God's house. God forbid. That's not a normal person, because we know that religion is the opium of the masses. Only weak people need God. Normal people don't need God. And to live in his house and he's going to take care of you, that's not normal. Okay? And after all, Rabbi, what's wrong with a little bit of entertainment now and then? What's wrong with a little bit of amusement now and then? And this religion will not allow for that. This religion says, I have to be with you, God, the whole time. And this is the fear that they had going into the dentist's chair. That our life, we had a normal life. You want to add to this normal life and give us a few more responsibilities? I'm a normal guy. I do what everybody else does. I watch hockey games. I watch football games. I enjoy it. I get a lot of pleasure. I got a lot of pleasure playing golf. I got a lot of pleasure, and I also keep the 7 Noachide laws. I stick to my wife, not to other wives. I won't steal. God, you want me to be a little bit more? You want me to put on tefillin? Okay, I'll put on tefillin. You want me not to work on Shabbos? I won't work on Shabbos. You want me to keep kosher? Keep kosher. But don't take over my life. I still want to be normal. And that's what the Jews are afraid. They would lose their normalcy. So then Hashem says, but I see we're willing to take on more. So at that point, but what did Hashem say? And Hashem says, you think you just want to be normal like everyone, plus. The difference between a Jew and a non-Jew is not just 606 mitzvahs. He said, what's a Jew and a non-Jew? Well, non-Jew does 7 mitzvahs, Jews does 606 mitzvahs. That's not, so the Jews thought, okay, we're willing to do 613. And that's enough. And God says, very nice. That's an Ishma. But now he puts the mountain over heads and says, I want you to know something. There's no such thing as doing 613 without having God very intimately involved in your life. If God is not involved intimately in your life, you're going to resent the extra 606. You might be inspired now. I just took you out of Egypt. You figure you owe me something. Okay, yeah, we'll have gratitude to God. We'll do a little bit more. Because after all, he did save us. That gratitude is not going to last forever. He said, if you don't accept, and the mountain over their head was like the chuppah over your head. The mountain over their head was the chuppah, was the nesuim. We have to be living like husband and wife. And that means you can't play the field anymore. You got to always be thinking of me all the time, just like I'm thinking of you all the time. And to that, they were very frightened, so God needed 2 strong men to put the guy in the chair, because ultimately what they wanted was good and was the right thing, and they were forced into that. And that's the 2 steps. This is what's going on over here. And therefore, yes, they were willing very much. Yeah, so we'll do more. I think it's good to get my teeth fixed. But now when you feel the pain of losing normal living, and this is the challenge, to go to a secular Jew and to want him to become more observant. What are they so afraid of? They're not going to be normal anymore. You're going to suck the life out of me. And not only that, you go to an observant Jew who isn't as observant as he should be and suggests he should be observant. You go tell a regular person who goes to a standard shul where they talk in shul and tell them not to talk in shul. They're going to say, what do you want? I have to be normal. It's not normal to not talk in shul. Right? So they feel threatened. What do you mean? I shouldn't talk in shul? Why not? Well, you know why? Because God's in the shul. What are you talking about, God's in the shul? God's not in the shul. My friends are in the shul. God wants us to pray in this shul. Okay, we do what he says, but he's not in the shul. Because if people really knew God was really in the shul, they wouldn't be going to shul either. And that's too heavy. I don't want God that close to me. I'll do what he wants from a distance, but I don't want to be married to him. But that, you're telling me to be quiet in shul. What you're really saying is, don't you realize you're married to God? He says, oh, I'm not married to God. No, I want to be normal. I'm in my regular world. That's why how he explains, isn't it interesting, what did the Jews do the night before they received the Torah? They went to sleep. They went to sleep. Why did they go to sleep? Well, in other words, can you imagine, let's say it like this. Imagine a husband and wife, they get married, yeah? Chuppah, everything, the party's over. The husband and wife, they come to the hotel room, and the wife says, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. Okay, what kind of message is she saying to the husband? Yeah, I'm happy to take the responsibility of being a wife, but I don't want to be that close to you. I don't want to be that intimate with you. Jewish people say, we'll get the Torah, we could sleep. We'll sleep on our wedding night. As opposed to, but what do we do to fix that up every Shavuos? We stay up the whole night. What you really want to do as a wedding night is to be up the whole night and talking and being very intimately involved and conscious of what's going on with that other significant other in your life. So the Jewish people were not prepared to build a life in partnership with God. They were happy with the Nasav and Ishma part. They go to sleep the night before. The next day God says, listen, I'm putting the mountain over your head. Either it's a full-time relationship or you're finished. And that is the ultimate shotgun wedding. That's what the Jews will have to be pushed into. It's interesting, Rabbi Pincus mentions a story that he once noticed there was a very good bacher in his yeshiva who was really learning. And the kids started to get into, like surfing the internet. And it wasn't like he was looking at things that were prohibited. It wasn't like he was looking at pornographic materials. So it was stam narishkeit. Interesting stuff. So, and Rabbi Pincus was trying to encourage him not to do that kind of things. He has better things to do with his time. Right? So he tells him the famous story of the Chavetz Chaim. The famous story of the Chavetz Chaim. Once the Chavetz Chaim needed to hitch a ride with a wagon driver. So a regular guy, not a professional. He gets a ride, and the wagon driver stops off by another person's field. He says, listen, do me a favor. I'm a little bit hungry. I want to take some food from the field here. In other words, he wants to steal. He says, do me a favor, you just keep lookout, and if anybody comes, say that they're here. And I'll know to jump out and I won't get caught. So the guy starts going in the fields, about to take some chametz. He says, he's here! Oh, the guy runs back to the wagon. Oh, thank you. They go to the next farm. Says, we'll do better at the next farm. Okay, you give me the word again. So same thing, goes out, is ready to take some food. Comes out, he's here, runs again. It's happened 2-3 times. The guy says, wait a minute, I'm going to check the third time. He waits, nobody came. He says, what are you talking about? There's nobody here. And of course he said, no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God is here. So the rabbi said this story to the young man. And what was the young man's reaction to the rabbi? He says, true story. He says, Rabbi, are you crazy? Do you really think that Hashem is next to me while I'm surfing the net? He's not. In other words, and that's the big problem. When Hashem put the mountain over our heads and wanted to say we have to have a second stage of marriage, you got to know, a husband and wife, they go together. One of the rules of being married, a very simple rule, that if you follow this rule, you'd be in good shape. As a husband or as a wife, but usually you have to say more to the husband. Let's say you want to go to the bar. And the bar, they say all kinds of off-color jokes and they make fun of their wives and this and that. Would you bring your wife to the bar with you? Well, if you wouldn't bring your wife there, then why are you going there? Isn't that like a simple understanding of marriage means you're together? Right? It's a simple rule of marriage. Would you take your wife to your secretary's private studio downtown and have her watch what you're doing with the secretary, God forbid? And I wouldn't bring her there. So why are you there yourself? All these different things. Like, you wouldn't do this, right? So the same thing, that's what marriage to God means. Well, would you go anywhere yourself? Anywhere they wouldn't take God with you? Right? So even if so we're not talking about you looking at the internet of things that are mamish prohibited, but how about things that are just narishkeiten? Let's say your wife hates sports. She hates it. She thinks it's very stupid, right? So you're going to take her to a hockey game? Right? So you're not going to take her to a hockey game. So why are you going to the hockey game? Well, I have a life besides my wife. Really? Is that what marriage is all about? My own life? So, well, I want to be normal. See, normal people really, they don't get married to share, to be one with another person. They get married for self-serving purposes. The secular version of marriage is, no, I definitely do things different and have nothing to do with my wife. In Judaism, that's not so. Judaism, it's two half souls that are being merged as one. There's no such thing as one doing things without the other one knowing. Okay, maybe there's some unique cases of shalom bias. But on a general basis, a husband doesn't have his own world and the wife has their own world and they don't have nothing to do with each other. They have a lot. They share their world experience with each other. So the point he is saying is, what's the definition of a Jew? A Jew only goes where Hashem would go. If you ever have a question, should you go to a place? Should you say anything? Should you do anything? Just say to your mind, would I do it in front of Hashem? Would I take Hashem into this place? Would I take Hashem into this place? Plain and simple. Would I take my wife into this place or not? And this was the tension the Jews had. They said, we're willing to be married to you, but we don't want to live with you. That we don't want to go. That was the problem. It was a problem then, and it's a problem till today. Till today, Sam. Yeah, Larry?
Well, I was just saying, you wouldn't take your wife to a Gemara class.
You don't take her to a Gemara class only because Hashem says not to.
Right.
Hashem says not to.
So you're talking about the Narshke.
Yeah, the Narishkeit things, that you shouldn't be doing. And if both spouses want to do Narishkeit, that's a major problem. Because remember, there's 3 partners in the marriage, husband, wife, and God. All 3 are going to the same place. So my wife says I can go. We'll both surf the net together. Wait a minute, but Hashem is the 3rd partner in this marriage. So you got to see if Hashem wants to go. But I'm just saying, if you know your wife wouldn't want you to be somewhere, you don't go there, right? If you know Hashem doesn't want you to go, that's what marriage to Hashem is. So it's so interesting. He says, if you look through Jewish history, this proves the point. All destruction of the Jewish people came from this point, that we were happy to be engaged, but we didn't want to be married. He says, it used to be in the olden days, in the good old days, when you have a kehillah, a community of thousands of people, right? So, they were generally God-fearing people. Let's say you had 10,000 people in the city, so you'd have one rabbi, you'd have one informer to the government, one Russia, one person who was, a Meshumad, the guy gave up his religion, and the other 998,000 Jews were nice, good-fashioned, God-fearing Jews. That's what it used to be. So what destroyed Judaism? Listen to what he says. What destroyed Judaism in the 1800s was the Enlightenment movement. The Renaissance of man in general, the Enlightenment, and specifically, he doesn't talk about the Reform movement, but this whole idea of Haskalah, Enlightenment. The problem with the Enlightenment wasn't a problem in the initial stages of Nasa v'Nishma, we will do and we will listen. That wasn't going against we will do and we will listen. That was not the problem that upset the rabbis with the Enlightenment. The very first steps of the Enlightenment movement, right in the beginning, the Reform movement, they didn't say to change anything. They said, let's just take out one prayer. Yukum Perkon. Just take out one prayer. We don't feel it's appropriate to say this prayer to us. And the old guard was screaming and yelling. So what did the great rabbis understand? What do you mean? We're still keeping Shabbos, doing everything. What do you want? The problem was not in the Nasa v'Nishma. The problem is they didn't want to live together with Hashem. This is what they didn't want. They didn't say don't keep Shabbos. They didn't say don't keep kashrus. They said keep all the mitzvahs. But together with that, you got to be normal. A Jew who lives in Germany, you want to keep Torah mitzvahs? Keep it in the house. But when you're out with everybody else, be normal. Right? Which also meant, and in those days, remember everything in the context of those days, not now, and therefore you go to university. And in those days, university wasn't for the purpose of getting a job. In 1800s, you didn't go to university to get a job. Why'd you go to university? To educate yourself. To be worldly. To understand what's going on in the world. And really it was the domain of the rich. Because everyone knew to make a living you're going to work on the farm. Why'd you go to university? University was something for the sophisticated. It wasn't for Parnasa. Today it's a whole different world. You need to go to university to make a Parnasa, there's reason to go. Because you have to make a Parnasa. If you go to university saying, today, I have to make a Parnasa, I have to make I want to be an accountant, I got to spend 3 years in university to be an accountant. I'll be an accountant, I'm finished university, and I can be an accountant. Fine. But if you go to university, you know what? There's much more to life than Judaism. God and His Torah, that's nice. That's one part of wisdom. There's a lot more very valuable wisdom in the world. If I would learn Latin, that would make me a much more rounded person. If I learned the sonnets, and I learned, all the great writers of history, and I should learn, what drama and dance and this, and I have to know everything's going on in the world. Now, that's a part of the world that will make me an enlightened person. That's what the Enlightenment in the 1700s and 1800s was. So, in other words, what was meant? So, you know what? We don't have to live with God so much. There's other very nice things in this world outside of God. The other things I can love. I can have more than one lover. That's what it really was. It's a very subtle point. And it's interesting, one of the Chavetz Chaim's grandchildren relates the story. You see, no one can be so protected. Chavetz Chaim had a granddaughter, that somehow ended up in Russia. So when she was 16 years old, she ran off to university. And she came back as 18 to totally secular. It's a grandchild of the Chofetz Chaim. Can you imagine? She comes back. She comes to see her Zaidi, and she comes back to the Chofetz Chaim, who's in Radin, old-fashioned Radin, the old-fashioned house with the Gemaras and all that stuff. And she says, Zaidi, how long are you going to live in the darkness? Why don't you go out and see the light of the world? So what was she saying? Zaidi, why do you got to be married to God so much? There's so much other things. You know what the Chofetz Chaim answered? So he took her out and says, there happened to be a plane. So good. This must have been the early 1900s. Right? Sees a plane going over. She says, I want to tell you what this enlightenment is going to do. This enlightenment enlightens people to be able to make planes. They're so enlightened that those planes one day are going to drop bombs and kill people. And nobody in the 1900s believed that, never even thought that a plane's purpose was to drop a bomb. What was the Chofetz Chaim saying to you? If you're enlightened without God, you're going to be an animal. You'll drop bombs and kill people. That's how enlightened you are. That's the point. So Hashem was saying, listen, I didn't make you the Jewish people just to give you more mitzvahs. I didn't make you Jewish people just to be a better, constituents in the realm. I am giving you the Torah to marry me to the full extent of what that means. And that's what they were very scared of. They were afraid, you want me to give up my life? Let me give up who I am? I am like the regular world, and that's who I am. And you want me to be something else? And this was the pinpoint of the fear. The pinpoint is, if I'm going to live with God on a full-time basis, you're taking my life away, you're stripping my life away, and I'm not going to be normal, and I'm not going to be happy. You want me to keep Shabbos? Fine. You want me to keep kashrus? Fine. But let me be normal. I'll go on a glatt kosher cruise. I'll go glatt kosher Pesach hotel. Well, I'll fresh like a fair, but it's all kosher. I'll sleep the whole time, gain 10 pounds, and maybe I'll go to a late minyan for a few minutes. Is that called being with Hashem? But it's kosher. I'm not working. That's not a vacation. That's not with Hashem. And that's the problem we have then, and that's the problem we have now. And says Rav Pinkus, he says the old Yetzer Hara was the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was this way of getting people away. He says people aren't so enlightened anymore. We're a bunch of behemoths now. Even the best people are behemoths. He says, what's the new thing? So he says the new thing is amusement and entertainment. You know, it used to be you could talk to people about philosophy and things like that and debate them in philosophy. No one's interested in philosophy anymore. They're just looking for escape, and they just want to be entertained and amused. That's all they want. And this is their new life. This is the new other world. This is what being normal. Normal now is not so much having a broad education and knowing everything. Being normal now is to find sophisticated ways to waste your time and be amused. You ask a typical goy, what are you living for? I'm living for my next vacation. I'm living for, you know what I got? I got this new, MP3 that does this, digital HDF and all this, the widescreen and, that's all these amazing pleasures I can have and this and that. Any type of amusement or entertainment is what I live for. And it means all to the extent that you're not living with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, the point of the matter is, and you say I should be such a religious Jew that I shouldn't have any fun? So you want to take away from me? Every normal person has fun. Every Motzei Shabbos, everybody goes, has a good time. Goes to see a movie, does this, does that. We have to have fun. That's why, Shabbos is getting later now. Can't interrupt the fun. The fun has to start. We have to be somewhere 7 o'clock. Or the whole Motzei Shabbos is messed up. All the fun is messed up. So Rabbi, finish Shabbos fast. Right? So Hashem says, I didn't say you can't have fun. I programmed you to have fun. The word fun isn't the right word. Fun, as we said in Hebrew, there's no such word. To take pleasure. To take pleasure? Hashem created take pleasure. What do you take your pleasure for? To take pleasure in God. To take pleasure in God, and that's what we say in the in Proverbs and in the Siddur. What do we daven every day? By Birchas HaTorah, V'arevna Hashem Elokeinu es divrei Sirascha b'finu b'firam chol Yisrael. Hashem, make the Torah sweet for us. Give me the ability to enjoy learning. The very first medrash of all the medrashim in the Torah quotes the pasuk in Proverbs where Hashem says, I was to them like, I was then his nursling, I was his delight every day, playing before him at all times. Hashem wants to have pleasure, yes, and take pleasure in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Take pleasure in the Torah that he has. That is something you can have immense pleasure. And that's where the battle is being won and lost today. Where the pleasure is going to be. Is the pleasure going to be in your Yiddishkeit, or is the pleasure going to be somewhere else? So this is the question. Rabbi, what's wrong if I do this? There's nothing wrong. We're not talking about going on the internet and seeing pornographic stuff. What's wrong that I just keep up with the news? What's wrong to do this? What's wrong to do that? You know what's wrong with it? You're saying goodbye to God. You want to have a certain part of your life. I don't want God involved in my life. That's what it's all about. And that's how you equate marriages now. I don't need my wife in everything. She can stick her nose out of a lot of my business. Right? And this is not what God created us for. He created us to have an intimate relationship so we can be the most amazing people we could be. He says a story, an amazing story. He says of a very smart rabbi who was the one who was able to take all the new stuff with the computers and be able to put all of Torah on the computer. You can have the whole Shas, the entire Talmud is now on the computer. Bar Ilan has programs. We have Mamish, all the books of the library are all on one disc. Any sefer you want, it's all there. And Mamish with sophisticated search engines, this, that, it's Mamish, it's unbelievable. It's great people who learned the Torah. So Pinchas says, he put the Rambam on everything. So Pinchas one time sees this guy. He's playing a computer game. One of these racing games on the computer. Sir Pinchas says to him, I don't get it. You're a scholar. You're a scholar. Does it suit you to play a computer game? So the guy answered him, you're right, but I'm not able to control myself. As much as Torah I can put into the computer, but I'm hooked on the computers. And I can't get out of the computers. That's you have to realize the challenge of this generation. There's a lot of sophisticated equipment now with the Blackberries and this and that. And I'm not saying you can't use it, but I'm saying there's a tremendous danger around. And what's the danger? It's going to start to get you to forget about Hashem. If you have to look at the Blackberry, if you can't turn the Blackberry off before you go to Shul, there's a problem. No? If you're afraid you're going to miss a call while you're in the middle of Shemon Esrei, that's a problem. You know, if you're out, go out to dinner with your wife, and this is your romantic evening out, and the Blackberry's on because maybe I'll get a call, what does that say about your relationship with your wife? It's not as important as a client's. Right? So all these kakamaikas, all these electronical things, and all these apps. Kakamaika needs no translation. You understand? Narishkeit. Well, the new word is the apps, right? These apps, these applications. You could have anything. You could have this ringtone, like for 60 seconds. You could do this interesting thing. Go here. You can watch this. Even harmless things. But what do? You're freezing your brain and giving it away and taking it away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, you want all those apps? You want Hashem to watch all the apps that you're watching? So you said, what's wrong with it, Rabbi? So the question better is, what's right with it? Why don't we first say what's right with it? And only if it's right. What's right with it is something I would want Hashem and me to watch together. No. Would you take your children to see certain things that you see? You don't want them to see certain things you see. You don't want Hashem to see this either. If you're married to Hashem, this is the challenge. This is what this week's parsha is all about. And unfortunately, Rapinka says, if we don't get it, it has horrific results. Now, I'm going to say what he says. You're going to be upset at him, not at me. He says the Holocaust, was not a punishment to the Jewish people. The Holocaust was to save the Jewish people. Because the Jewish people were sinking into being normal like the rest of the world. And if the Jews would have been so normal to be like everybody else, there'd be no more Jewish people anymore. The Holocaust was to just save them. Well, you're going to ask, how come you have to kill 6 million to save? Sometimes that's what it takes, because the Jews are stubborn. They don't listen too quickly. You want to be normal. If you think that the sophisticated German who is enlightening you, you're craving to be like the German. There's only one way for you not to want to crave to be like a German. Have the German act like the biggest sadistic monster in the world. See how stupid you were to think that they were anything? And God was just trying to save us, not to punish us. And of course, the Jews are still stupid. They still don't get the lesson. And people think that they could do the same thing again in Canada. It's not going to repeat. Not that God's going to punish us. He has to save us. What's we left to the Jewish people? If we want to be like them and we don't want to be married to them, we don't have a choice. Either if you're going to be married to Hashem, fine. If not, here's your burial place. If there had been no Holocaust, there'd be no Jews by now. What happened to all the Jews in Europe? They're all assimilated. Nothing left. Because they're not interested in Hashem. In one more halacha, Rambam, last halacha, Rambam says, now you understand, when the Jews really rule Eretz Yisrael, not like now where the United States rules Eretz Yisrael, we're just a puppet, we just do what the president tells us to do. But if we really ruled it, the law is non-Jews are not allowed to live in Eretz Yisrael. At all. Not only that, a non-Jew can't even pass through on a business trip to go through Eretz Yisrael. To use it just as a vehicle to go through. Now you understand why. Because what's Eretz Yisrael supposed to be? The matrimonial home of the Jewish people in Hashem. In the matrimonial home, no strangers are allowed. Not even to pass through. You don't let a stranger walk through your bedroom. Eretz Yisrael is like our bedroom. And therefore, what's a guy living there for? It's nothing to do with this. Not even just to go through, you can't go. You want to visit, bring a korban to Hashem, pay homage to God, that's different. But you're not going to be a permanent resident over here. So much so we have to feel connected to Hashem. We don't want, there's no outsiders. Same reason why a goy can't keep Shabbos. Same thing, Shabbos is between us and Hashem. It's private time between us and Hashem. Yes, we live in a world where there are non-Jews. Of course there are non-Jews in the world, but I'm thinking of Hashem all the time. And there's special times where I'm totally exclusive. I don't even look at a non-Jew. Shabbos, Eretz Yisrael. Right? But to want to live and feel like them, that you cannot be. And that's what Rav Pinkus concludes. And he concludes with the final story. So this is the fear. This is the fear we all have. So he says, and the truth of the matter is, it's all just an image. It's false. It's not true. You think you won't be normal if you will do this. So Rav Pinkus ends with one last story. He once was talking to about tshuva. And this is so beautiful. He says, until now, you are you, he's talking about tshuva, you are you and I am I. Now it appears you want to be like me. So you're afraid. You're afraid. Because now, you're not going to be yourself anymore. He's speaking out the guy's fears. So Rav Pink says, I promise you, if you continue to go in the right path, what's going to happen? You're going to reveal how sweet you really always were. In other words, you'll find out who you really are. You don't have to be like me, you have to be like you. The problem is we don't even know who we are. The I that we think we are is just what the rest of the world has told us what we are. And the saddest thing for the Jewish people is that many of us have never even begun to be who we are, because who are we? What everybody else says we should be. But that's called normal. And since that's normal, that's what I think is I, and I think that's the I. And now you want to threaten me, Rabbi, to bring Torah and God into my life? That's not the I. And Rav Pink is saying, you know what, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be you. And when you find out who you really are, you're going to see how sweet the really you are. Because you know why? The you has a beautiful neshama that really wants to be very close to Hashem. So that's the challenge of this week's Parsha. To be able to not just be engaged to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but to get married to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And to get married means a full-time relation with Hashem that Hashem promises you is better than anything else. You got to just sit in the dentist chair and let him work a little bit. The more you let him work, and sometimes you need to be forced for your own benefit. Hashem should help us that we should force ourselves to want to get closer to Hashem and appreciate what Hashem has to offer us.